coming. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Tonya Gomez. I work as a registered dietitian and fitness coordinator here at Fulton County Health Center. I started working here in January of 2002, and I worked here for almost 2 years. Then I had to stop for about 2 years because of my illness, and so I've been back ever since about September, October of 2005. And I'm here to talk to you about my journey with illness and transplantation and to talk about organ, eye, and tissue donation. So I want to start with a video.
I was born with cystic fibrosis, which is a genetic lung disease. As I got older, I was probably going to need a double lung transplant, or I wasn't going to live very long. My name is Tonya Gomez. I received a double lung transplant May 25th of 2004. My lung function started to decline and went in for a checkup, and the doctors decided that I was at the point where I was probably going to need a lung transplant. There were nights when I was afraid to go to sleep because I wasn't sure if I was going to wake up the next morning because of the way I was breathing, and as I gradually declined, it was harder and harder to do things. 5 months and 1 week later, I got the phone call. I think it all started setting in because I realized I might not come out of this. There's a chance that I just might not. I think that was the hardest part for me because I had this little baby that I needed to be here for. And I think that was the hardest, is just not knowing if I was gonna come out of the surgery or not. But I did, and I woke up, and it was awesome. I have to say, after my transplant, I don't think I realized how sick I was until after I woke up and I could breathe. It's truly an amazing thing, and that's when it hit me that this is real, and I woke up from it, and I really took a different perspective on life after that. And I knew that I had been given this gift that I needed to take care of. My donor's name is Adam. He was a 10-year-old boy, and every time I take a breath, Adam's breathing with me, because without him, I wouldn't be able to breathe. And so I think he's with me all the time, and thank yous just aren't enough. But I think he would be proud of the life that I'm living right now. I think he would be really proud. Even after 15 years, it still doesn't get any easier. But I'm here to talk to you guys about my journey, and I thought the video might be a little bit more appropriate because it just kind of shares a little bit in a nutshell, because when I was asked to do this, I was excited to share my story. I'm always excited to share my story. Anything about transplantation and encouraging people to register on the Ohio Donor Registry. I think the biggest issue I had with this was, what do I pick? What do I say? Because while you might not see a lot of pictures pre-transplant, 15 years in the world we live in now with digital technology, there's so many pictures to choose from, and I've had so many opportunities to do so many things. So that was the hardest part, was just picking what I was going to talk about and what I wanted to show you guys. So the first picture there is a picture of me and my brother. And we were both born with cystic fibrosis. I was diagnosed at 6 months of age, and he was born 2 years later, and they knew right away that he had cystic fibrosis. Unfortunately, his severity was much worse than mine, and he passed away at the age of 6. So that was very challenging. I was young, you know, I'll be honest, I don't remember a lot of it. I've been through so much in my life, and so many medications and illness and everything that I think sometimes it takes a toll on those memories, or sometimes you block them out. But, you know, when I think about it now, reflecting on that time so many years ago, I mean, it's been over 40 years. Not that I want to disclose my age, but it's been over 40 years since this happened. And, you know, I think about my mom and what it was like to lose a child. You know, if it doesn't happen to you, you can say, oh my gosh, it's horrible, but to go through that and actually think, you know, it never dawned on me as a kid what my mom was going through, having to deal with 2 sick children and then losing one of them and just having to go on and live. And my parents divorced, and she was taking care of us, and then she remarried and had 2 more children, and they don't have cystic fibrosis. So there I was. And for those of you that don't know what cystic fibrosis is, It is a genetic lung disease, and it mainly affects your lungs. It causes lots of lung infections to the point where eventually your lung function starts to decline. You damage portions of your lungs that you just can't get back. But there are other things that go with it, whether it be sinus problems or abnormal pancreas function, trouble breathing, gallbladder issues. I mean, there's so many different things that come with it, so many other comorbidities and ailments that come with it. And as I got older, I remember when I was younger, they said, well, most of your CF patients will develop diabetes when they're a teenager. And when I didn't develop diabetes when I was a teenager, I was like, I'm home free. And when I hit college, I developed diabetes. So it's just another thing that I had to deal with at that point in my life, and I just didn't want to deal with it. Again, because, I'm 40 plus years old, and we didn't have all the technology and digital ability that we had back then. There aren't a ton. I have a lot of pictures, but I don't have a lot of pictures of my medications and me doing therapies and things like that, because then I didn't want to be singled out. I didn't want to be branded. I didn't want anyone to know what was wrong with me. I wanted to be normal. I wanted to be like everybody else. Nowadays, people chronicle everything, from beginning to end, and I think it's wonderful that they share that. But I was at a point back then, I would have never thought of doing that. But this is just a glimpse into medication, pre-transplant in the life of a CF patient. There's some diabetes medication down there. Not everybody develops diabetes. There's nebulizers, there's medication, there's pills that you have to take before you eat in order to digest your food. The little vest up there, that's a pretty neat thing. Again, with medical technology, and as far as they've advanced with technology, it's awesome because it looks like it's gonna fit in my purse or a bag. I have a therapy vest, and it's about this big. It's very heavy to carry. It's got tubes. You hook it up to a vest, and it does this. It vibrates your chest to get all that abnormal mucus that's in there to get out. So we've got all these cool things now that work a lot better. But there was so much to do. It would take me 2 hours to get ready in the morning. So having to get up 2 hours to get ready for work, and then work a full day, and then come home and have to do it again. And technically, I should have been doing it midway through the day, but if you're working, you can't do that. So as an adult, it presents some challenges, but it's just kind of a glimpse into the life of a chronically ill person and what it takes to care for them and make sure that you stay as healthy as possible. Some people can't or don't even want to swallow one pill. It's a job for them. This is something I could take handfuls and just do it. So I did that for many, many years. And this is a picture of me. There are a couple pictures. I did find one that I could share of me on my oxygen. When I got a little bit older and I got married, I never thought I would have children. Patients with cystic fibrosis, there are fertility issues. They never told me that I would never have kids. I just never thought I would because I was so sick. How would I ever get pregnant or, even consider that, or how could it even happen to me? And oops, surprise, there it was. It was a wonderful blessing. And my doctors were very furious with me. They said, this is not something that we approve of, and we're worried about your health. We're not worried about the babies. If there's anything we have to do, we're going to worry about you first. Well, my husband and I decided we were going to put it in God's hands. And what I will tell you is that my pregnancy was like a normal pregnancy. He was born 6 weeks early. He was 4.5 pounds. I have pictures later. You would never know to look at him that he was 4.5 pounds when he was born. But he was my miracle baby. The picture I showed you of my brother and I, his name was Eric, and so we named our child Eric after my brother because I just thought it was fitting and appropriate because he was my miracle child. But the time came, my lung function declined. I would sleep with oxygen just to help me through the days and things like that, but it got to the point where my lung function declined to 19% out of 100. So if you can imagine somebody breathing at 100% capacity, and now I've dropped down to 19% on oxygen all the time, falling asleep in church, barely taking showers, having trouble doing self-care, let alone take care of a 2-year-old. It was very challenging for me. So I got to the point, and I'll be honest, I was working here, I would fall asleep in the office. Like, I was so tired, I couldn't do it. And I went in for a random CF appointment, and they said, you're done. You can't work anymore, we're not letting you go back. And I had to call, and
I got all the workup done for the transplant list, and I was listed on December 18th of 2003. When I got listed, they told me because of my size, I would probably have to wait 2 years because I would need a set of child's lungs. You know, then, I mean, there's so many things that happen, but you're not expecting children to pass away. You don't want anybody to pass away, but you're definitely not expecting children to pass away. So when they told me I was gonna have to wait 2 years, they said, pack a bag, be ready, you never know when you're gonna get that call. I didn't have a pager, I had to be by the phone. I mean, I didn't leave a lot. And I didn't really want to go very many places because I just didn't have the energy. I think kids are smart. I think my son knew that I was not well. He read a lot of books. He not actually read himself, he was only 2, but I read in books, he looked at books, he watched TV until I was ready to get up and take care of him. But you know, when you're waiting for something, anybody knows if you gotta wait for something, if you're waiting on water to boil, if someone tells you to be quiet for 2 minutes, you know, you've gotta wait for somebody, you're waiting in the doctor's office and you've been there way too long, or you have somewhere else to be. Waiting is hard, and when you're waiting on a life-saving transplant that you have no idea when it's gonna come or if it's even going to come, that is really, really hard. So I tried to do as many things to keep my body strong as I could. I came here and did some pulmonary rehab and would visit with my coworkers and, you know, all of those things. And I had some people say, you know, I never thought I would see you again because I'd been here less than 2 years when I had to stop working, and like, we just never thought we'd ever see you because you just looked like you were dying. So I waited 5 months and 1 week. It was actually the Tuesday before Memorial Day weekend, and they said, you know, it's kind of a bad thing to think of, but they said, you know, accidents happen, like the holidays, people are crazy, they do weird things. So that weekend before, we were at a family event, and I said, I'm not going anywhere next weekend, I'm staying home. And then the Tuesday before, I got that call about 10 o'clock in the morning. I had just gotten out of bed, ready to make eggs for my son, and I got the call from Cleveland Clinic, and they said, we think we have lungs for you. Do you want them? Well, for me, like, oh, do I want them? Do I not? You know, it's very different for every recipient or anyone who needs a transplant, because some people were very active and very healthy before their kidney failed, or very active and very healthy before their liver failed, or even their heart, or any other organ. So I knew my entire life that if I didn't get this transplant, there was no future for me. So I said yes. It didn't start setting in until the 2.5-hour drive to Cleveland Clinic because we had to be there. So we made it. They go through all these processes. They have to make sure everything is perfect. The tissue typing is perfect. The blood type is right. The size, make sure the lungs are in good enough condition. They wanted to make sure they were perfect. So I got there at 1, about 5 o'clock I found out that the transplant was a go. They took me back 7:30 p.m. in the wee hours of the morning. My husband got a call to let them know, you know, let him know that the lungs were in and they were closing me up and things were good. So, I mean, everything started setting in. When I was in the ICU and they were putting oxygen on me and taking all these blood tests and, you know, putting IVs in everywhere, it wasn't until I was like, oh my gosh, what if I don't come out of this? Kind of like I said in the video, what if I don't wake up? You know, my son was sleeping when I went into surgery, so I said, I'm not leaving until I hold this baby for a little bit. I wasn't gonna go. So, you know, we were facing reality right then and there, because it's like, I need this, I can't say no to it, but what if I don't see tomorrow or I don't see anybody else? So that was really hard, but I got the call. And, you know, we fast forward a little bit to post-transplant. Like I said, a lot of people chronicle everything today. You know, they're taking pictures of everything. They take pictures of when they go in and doing this and doing that. And back then, they wouldn't allow it. I mean, my husband wanted to take a couple pictures in ICU, and they said, absolutely not. We can't violate HIPAA rules. We don't know if you're going to take a picture of another patient or something. So they wouldn't let us take any pictures. So I don't have before, after, any of those things. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I see people hooked up to all these machines, and it's very scary. You know, I was out of it for all of that. It was a breeze for me because I slept through all of it. I can't imagine what my family was going through, not knowing if it was going to work out, but it did.
And so, you know, there were a lot of bumps along the way. I had rejection right out the gate, so they treated me with steroids. But I mean, I could breathe. Like, it was crazy because before I couldn't hold my breath. I couldn't do anything. I'd have to go in for my pulmonary function test, and I'd have to hold my breath. I'm like, I can't even do it for a second. I mean, I would, you know, get on the computer and read about stories and all these different things, and some were sad and some were great, and it was just a really hard process. And when I came out of the surgery, I felt like a Mack truck hit me, and it took me a while to kind of get my butt in gear and say, you can breathe, let's do this, because I was just trying to get through the days and recover. Hadn't seen my son for a week and a half, and when I finally saw him, that made everything better, because I was really missing him, and I was glad that I was able to wake up and see him. I had a wonderful medical team. The lady in red was my CF doctor prior to transplant, and she was the one that was very upset with me when I found out that we were pregnant, but she took wonderful care of me for so many decades and got me to the point where I was still alive when the time came. You know, they had been doing more transplants and they were more experienced, and they had that knowledge. The bottom picture, the three together are nurses, and this one is a respiratory therapist. And that was a recent picture. That was taken in the last couple years, same as this picture. They've both been taken recently. They weren't taken prior. I have pictures of them somewhere. They're probably at my mom's house. You know, it's not like we didn't live in the digital world back then, but these four right here were working at Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus when I would spend weeks on end in the hospital. And they are still there 30 plus years later. So, I mean, that was cool because I don't go there very much. And to go there and see them was really neat. And to see me thriving and alive was really cool too. The guy at the top, that was my surgeon. He was a guy who had God blessed him with the wonderful hands to give me what I needed to stay alive. And when I got released from the hospital, I was all puffy. I don't look like myself because I was on a lot of steroids. But I was bound and determined to find him and thank him because I never saw him again. Like other doctors came in, other nurses, but after surgery, I never saw him again. I had to go in search of him to thank him for what he had done for me and my family. So medical team's huge. We work in a hospital. We know how important our medical teams are. So, and this is my hero. This is Adam. He was 10 when he passed away. And I did not know anything about him. You know, every story is different. Every donor story is different. Nowadays, you hear about people knowing who their donor is for anything. Like, I don't even know how they do that because it was very confidential. They told me, wait at least 6 months before you write a letter to your donor family because they're grieving, they need time, and it had to go through the organ procurement organizations. So Life Connection of Ohio is the Northwest Ohio one, and I was in Cleveland, so it was Life Bank, and they were the go-between with all the letters. You had to mail your letter to them. They would call, hey, I got a letter for you, do you want it? And then they would forward it. 6 months went by, I didn't have to write a letter because my donor family wrote me first and told me about Adam, sent a picture. You couldn't have last names, you could only do first names. You couldn't list cities, couldn't tell where the person lived or anything. And so we started communicating on a regular basis, got to the point where they wanted to talk to me on the phone, and just over a year after my transplant, they wanted to meet me. That was hard. How do you deny them that? I wasn't gonna deny them, but I'm like, what do I do? What do I say? How do you react? I mean, there's so many emotions. And Eric was 3 then, you know, so he's still this little pint-sized kid walking around, not really knowing much of anything. And I think it was very healing for them to see that. And these are some pictures, not of our first meeting, but up there, mom, dad, Adam has 2 sisters, and so these are some pictures. The picture in the middle is the oldest sister's daughter, so that would be Adam's niece. We have been in very close contact with them and spent a lot of time with them over the last 15 years, and we're family. I am part of their family. I've been to both of the girls' graduations, both their weddings, and they live in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
So they are from Wisconsin. That's why you see the Green Bay gear. If you notice, that's what it is. Adam wanted to be a Green Bay Packer when he got older. So we finally were able to make a trip up to Lambeau Field and hang out with our donor mom and some other transplant recipients that we've met along the way. But they come to the Transplant Games, and I'll talk about those too. And now Ava, the little girl, she's a little bit older. That picture's from 2016 at the Transplant Games. And now Lori, the donor mom, she has 2 more grandkids to add to that. So when I went to April's wedding, who is the mother of Ava, something she said when we got there was, Adam is here. So he might not have been there physically, but I was using his lungs to breathe, so we were there together. But you always have to think about the donor family because it's different. I mean, they're all going through something different. We had a donor family who is actually up here, Dylan, who is on the trucks. I know I've talked about that before, but if you ever see the picture of Dylan on the back of semis, his mom and dad didn't want to meet any of the recipients because in their mind, they were perfect. They were afraid that if they met those recipients, maybe they weren't perfect, maybe they were sick, maybe they weren't even alive anymore. But after getting to know all of us and spending time with other transplant recipients and other donor families, the other people in that picture, it's me and my husband, Robert Shields, it's from the WTOL sit-in, Green Chair sit-in, quite a few years ago, but the other 6 people, they're all donor families. They've lost a loved one. One couple lost a son, the other 2 lost daughters, and they were donors. So we've grown quite close with the transplant community, and we've met so many people. We've been able to bring the Green Chair to the hospital and have the flag raising events and things like that. But the biggest thing that gets my heart is that kid right there who's getting older and he's thriving, and I get to see all of that. Like, it's just exciting. We've gotten to do so much. And this picture's from when we just celebrated my birthday in August. So, I mean, there's a lot. And like I said, going through 15 years of like almost all digital pictures, it's so hard to choose. And these are just some more. We went to Disney. We actually went to Disney twice, but while I was waiting for my transplant, my husband and I told Eric that as soon as Mommy got her transplant and got the clearance, we would go to Disney, because he always wanted to go to Disney. So in April of 2005, we were able to do that. I'm not real crazy about a lot of those pictures because my face is even more swollen than it was in the picture with my surgeon, but we've been to DC, we've been all over the place. Like, you know, I've probably gotten to do things that most people don't get to do, and I'm still not done yet. So I've been very blessed to be able to do these things and do them with my family and be there for him to grow up, because he's a senior this year, and I'm gonna get to see him graduate in May. And that's awesome to me. That's the best blessing that I could ever have. Life after transplant doesn't come without other issues, you know. I'm always tired. I always have other things going on. I'll have to take anti-rejection medications for the rest of my life. I'm still on steroids. I need a blood pressure medication. I still have my diabetes. I have, you know, osteoporosis. I have other things. But they're things that I deal with, and I have a better quality of life now. So that is the biggest thing, is my quality of life is so much better because I could be facing the alternative instead. And I'm glad that that did not happen to me, because some people aren't that fortunate. The quote at the top, I did not put the name of the person who quoted it, but I have another double lung recipient friend in California who also has cystic fibrosis. And she quoted, "Live like your donor's watching." And I try to do that as much as I can. I am very involved in the Transplant Games of America, which is like Olympic-style events for transplant recipients, and they let living donors and donor families participate now. So, I mean, it's just a huge event. It's in a different city every 2 years, and last year it was in Salt Lake City, and my goal was to hike. We didn't have a lot of time, but we were in high altitude, and I wanted to hike, and I didn't care what I had to do it. So we set out on a 5,500 to 6,000 feet altitude, and I just wanted to get to the top. There was a waterfall at the top. I did not make it to the top. I almost did. It was about 150 feet from the top, but as the altitude got higher and higher, and our one buddy who was with us, he had one of those things on his wrist that told us what altitude we were at and everything. The higher and higher we got, I could feel it in my legs, I could feel it in my lungs, and I'd have to stop and take a break like every 5 minutes. And just when I thought I'm good to go, I caught my breath, I'm good, it started again. So I was really disappointed that I didn't make it, but I was still pretty proud of myself for making it as high as I did. And I've never hiked before. So when we went on that mountain, even our friends who are avid hikers said, this is probably one of the hardest ones we've ever done. So I was pretty proud of myself for doing that. But I've been able to participate. You know, before I was never an athlete. Like, I didn't think I could do anything. So, you know, now I've been able to participate in basketball, volleyball, badminton, table tennis, like all different kinds of things. And I can do a lot. And I'm still working here, so I still get to do something else that I really love. And I believe that with God, all things are possible because, you know, it's great that I have my donors say yes, or their families say yes, but, you know, I try to believe that everything happens for a reason, and my work here is still not done. So, you can also be a hero through donation, and that's one of the other reasons that I'm here. I mean, there's so much information, and like I said, I could talk forever and ever, but, you know, it's truly remarkable, and there's so many advances in medicine that you never know if you're going to need a liver or a kidney or a pancreas or something else, you know? Things happen to people that we don't expect, even the healthiest people. So, you know, we have the power to be a part of that and be a donor. I am a Buckeye fan, and I don't know if, you know, how many are, but that's not the reason why I put the picture up. The horseshoe's very big. But it's just to give you an idea of how many people in the United States are currently waiting for transplants. And out of the 114,000, about 3,000 of them are from the state of Ohio. So there are a lot of people waiting on organs, and we can help facilitate that if we just add our name to the donor registry, and there's so many ways that we can do that. The information's there. I know you guys can read. You can save lives. There's so many misconceptions. People think that, you know, their religion doesn't allow it. They're too old or too sick to donate, and they're just not. The medical professionals will make that decision, and what can be donated. Oh my gosh, pancreas, kidneys, heart, lungs, liver, small intestine, and then you've got bone and tissue and skin. You know, people who have to have ACL repairs, it comes from a cadaver. You're a tissue recipient. If you have a mastectomy and you have to have a breast reconstruction, that's tissue. For people who are in burn units, I mean, they need skin. So that skin can change somebody's life. So it may not be a life-saving organ, but it still enhances your life. It changes it because it could be a matter of, can I walk or can I not walk? What is brain death? You know, that's the other thing. We can have a lot of registered organ donors, but are they passing away the right way? You know, I mean, there's a certain way in order to donate an organ, and it's not something that we always want to talk about, but it's still there. And I encourage people to get as much education about it. If you're not a donor, I'm not here to make you be a donor. I'm here to encourage you and just give you the facts, because I think we make better educated decisions when we have facts, when we're educated on things. And so this is the current driver's license, and you can see if you're not sure if you're a donor, there's a heart on it. Now, I don't know if anybody have the new license yet? Because it is not on the front, it's actually on the back, and it says organ donor in really small print. So it will change once you change your license, so the heart is not going to be there anymore. But you can register today. There's the website. Again, you know, we're huge supporters. I volunteer with Life Connection of Ohio. You guys have a pen and a notepad and a brochure. The brochure has even more information, all the facts, anything that you can get, and how you can donate. There's more information on the back of the table too. There's bracelets. There's little spray hand sanitizers. There's just information. And if you're using that pen and you're not a donor, maybe you'll think about it. I hope that everybody is. I'm a registered donor because when I'm gone, they can use whatever I can't anymore. My husband wasn't a donor until I needed a transplant. So sometimes people have to be affected by it in order to change their mind, and sometimes that still doesn't change their minds. I've volunteered at so many events, and you know, I just did the Fulton County Health Fair, and I had a couple walk by, and you know, wife was a donor, husband wasn't, because he just, you know, she's like, I've been trying to get him to change his mind, and so not everybody believes in the same thing, or, you know, whatever their feelings are. What I tell people is don't think about it. Don't think about what happens afterwards, because just know that you can save somebody when you're gone, and it can make all the difference in the world, and I'm here to testify to that, because my life has been enriched in so many ways, and I'm very fortunate for that. So I thank you guys for listening,
And if you're not a donor, hopefully I've inspired you to become one. Any questions?